James, black
Hmm.
woman. Fannie Willis, black woman. Don Lemon, black man. Ilhan Omar, black woman. Somalis, Haitians, pro-Palestinian activists, Muslims. And I'm sorry to say this, folks,
Hmm.
they've been doing this forever. And America said, ICE, you go ahead. You go crack the skulls of black people. CBP, you go ahead. You rape and torture and kidnap brown people. You know what? War and terror, go ahead. Go after them Palestinians, Joy. Go after the Muslims. We don't have to go back that long. Let's look a year ago. Go after the pro-Palestinian activists. Go get 239 brown people, kidnap them like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and have them die in Seacoast. It's okay. And I know people might like hearing this. Some Democrats were like, don't be woke. We'll vote for the Laken Riley Act. We won't say anything about the genocide in Gaza. And fascists come for everyone. And
Hmm.
now, going back to your point, and Lev has said it on my show, they were pissed off that the two bodies that were killed and martyred were white bodies.
Yeah.
Renee Nicole Good. They were able to knock out Renee Nicole Good a bit because she's a woman and a lesbian. It still didn't stick. And then the second one, hopefully, will get us a black or brown body. Alex Preddy, a white man. And this is why they're delivering for their base the vengeance in the form of black and brown body. Ilhan Omar just happened, folks.
Hmm.
Maxwell Frost, Joy. Sorry for
Hmm.
my rant. I'll finish now.
No, no,
What
no.
would happen in this country if two white MAGA Congress people were attacked in 1 week? I have the receipts that when Sarah Huckabee Sanders, whose eye makeup was mocked during White House Correspondents' Dinner during the annual roast, for 1 week, Joy, we were told, how dare you mock Sarah Huckabee Sanders' eye makeup? Remember that? Michelle Wolf
Yeah.
talked about her smoky eye makeup. Maxwell Frost and Ilhan Omar were attacked. Two black congressmen out of the news, Joy. It's out of the news because
Exactly.
violence against our bodies is acceptable.
Yeah.
I'll end it on this again. If they can go after Renee Nicole Good, if they can call her domestic terrorist in death, if they can investigate her widow, if they can kill Alex Preddy, if they can say, oh, he had a gun, if they can call him a domestic terrorist, and now if they can go after Don Lemon, all the white quislings and corporate quislings, our colleagues who have been complicit, they will go after you in the New York Times, the Atlantic, the Free Press, and yes, even CBS News.
Yeah, indeed. Well said, Waj. Let's bring in Angela Rye, our friend, and also the co-host of Native Land Pod,
Oh my God.
and
You guys-
also a lead in State of the People Power Tour. Angela, your thoughts on the arrest of both Don Lemon and Georgia Ford?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Joy, for having me on. Mark, it's always good to see you and watch. Hello. I will say that as much as I should not be alarmed, I am. I will say that I feel like in some ways I've betrayed our dear sister journalist, who I think is a modern day Ida B. Wells based on the coverage she has done on the ground in Minnesota. I feel like we have failed her. But here's the real failing, and that is the application of the law. I keep this little Declaration of Independence and Constitution on my desk, and this thing, you might as well burn it up, throw it away. It does not apply. They are not following the law. They are following their fragile white supremacist feelings. They have used that in the arrest of these people who were merely covering a protest. You see their accounts every single day. Don Lemon is on the ground somewhere talking to somebody about what is happening from their personal perspective or what is happening from the standpoint of what is making news. Georgia Fort has been doing that in Minnesota. She is the one who has been the pulse, the conscience of journalism on the ground there. And so we know why. We know why they want to arrest her. Georgia Ford has children at home. You hear one of them screaming, crying on this video, like completely disrupting and upheaving her life because she went to tell the truth. And so what we are being told by the highest office in the land is that truth is dangerous here. That your truth will get you arrested, that they will charge you for violations of the KKK Act. Imagine having the balls and the unmitigated audacity to charge Black people with the Ku Klux Klan Act. There's some Black people I can think of that should be charged with the KKK Act, but they're not over normally where we sit, okay? So this to me is beyond the pale. And I think we've been saying sound the alarm. We've been saying code red. People have been blowing whistles on the street, and not the way Too Short normally does it. This is the time to set up bail funds, because you don't know when you will fall victim to what this administration has decided is the law. The law is when you hurt Donald Trump's feelings. The law is when he has an axe to grind, and a bone to pick, and a grudge to hold. And he will use every force he has in his administration that is completely unchecked, completely unaccountable to the law, and completely unaccountable to the Constitution. And you know what's sad? Now this country that was too afraid to say that its roots are racist, all of the politicians on both sides of the aisle and everybody in between who refuse to say that, now they've got to wrestle with that. Now they've got to contend with the fact that this here never really applied to us. That equal protection never really applied to us. And so now, as Dr. King said, we have to see if it can be true to what it said on paper. And right now, is hell no.
Yeah. Well said. And it is, I think it's jarring for everyone. And keep in mind that Angela Rye is the former general counsel to the Congressional Black Caucus, so she knows what she speaks when it comes to the law and all things in terms of justice as well. Let me play really quickly. Jason's been playing it with the sound down, but I want to put the sound up, Jason, if you could. And please play Georgia Fort. So this is the video that Mehdi Hasan was talking about. Georgia Fort actually live streamed what was happening to her. Hopefully this is the right video. I pulled it kind of on the fly as I was trying to hear it.
I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. They're saying that they were able to go before a grand jury sometime, I guess, in the last 24 hours, and that they have a warrant for my arrest. I've talked to my attorney, and I'm being advised to go with them, I guess, down to Whipple. And my children are here. They're impacted by this. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. We are supposed to have our constitutional right of the freedom to film, to be a member of the press. I don't feel like I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press because now federal agents are at my door arresting me for filming the church protest a few weeks ago. Again, I don't have a long time here, you guys, but I wanted you to know, for me, agents are at my door right now. My attorney has spoken with them. I did send a relative outside to talk to them. They're showing some type of documentation, apparently, that they got an indictment from a grand jury. I knew that I was on a defendant's list. I did not publish it because it was under seal. And so we've done everything that we can to try and abide by, you know, the advice of our attorneys. But right now, you guys, I wanted you to know I'm going to have to hop off here and surrender to agents as a member of the press. I filmed the church protest a few weeks ago, and now I'm being arrested for that. It's hard to understand how we have a constitution, constitutional rights, when you can just be arrested for being a member of the press. We've seen all these violations. All right, you guys, I gotta go. They're knocking.
Yep, she's coming right now.
Give me 1 second. All right, guys.
Angela.
Yeah.
Well, this is terrifying. You know, I mean, I covered the Freddie Gray protests. I've covered a lot of Black Lives Matter protests and marches. You know, never would any of us have believed. I mean, I was in South Carolina covering when they took the Confederate flag down. There were white nationalists dressed in Confederate uniforms chaining themselves to the Confederate flagpole, and we interviewed them. You know, the idea that filming a protest, that essentially doing the journalistic work that, you know, that we do, and part of that job, as Don Lemon does all over the country, as Georgia Fort does and was doing, part of the job is to film the protest. But can you talk about the escalation from arresting people who were civilians filming protests, brutalizing them and arresting them, including Alex Preddy? He was killed for filming a protest. Let's be very clear.
That's right.
And for being present at protests and being part of them, that would be Renee Nicole Good, to now arresting the journalists who are also filming and documenting the protests.
I want to answer that too, Joy, but if you would let me, I
Please.
want to get in a little bit into this KKK Act component.
Please.
And also, I just want to flag two other things. Don was our guest host right after you were on the show. We talked about this. We actually laughed about the application of the KKK Act here because it's so ridiculous. The tangential stretch and connection that you have to make this, you can't. You actually can't. They just used a law that sounded inflammatory to double down on this reverse racism claim that they're in, where you have the EEOC director telling white men, if you're a white man who has experienced discrimination, you may have rights to monetary damages. No, you do not. No, you do not. So there's that. And then there's also this idea that Georgia Forts, who was on with us also last week, came on my live, talked about everything she was seeing on the ground, came to our live town hall in Minnesota, where she was prolific. Like, these people are on the ground doing the work. The KKK Act says in part, in any of the rights, this is a quote, any of the rights, privileges, or immunities or protection named in the Constitution to enforce the law, the president could suspend habeas corpus, deploy the U.S. military, or use other means as he may deem necessary. The enforcement mechanism here is to enforce equal protection of the law for all people, designed to protect Black folks who were being lynched, killed, violently assaulted, vigilantes coming after them. Who do we really need protection from in this hour? It's not Greg Bovino, who they just deported out of Minnesota back to his home on the West Coast. Like, let's be very clear about where we need to be protecting people. It's not from Georgia and Don. It's actually not. And so what I'm hoping for in this moment is that their Black Lives Matter enough for white people to care all over the country the way they have about Renee Good and about Alex Preddy, which, by the way, if there was a textbook definition of what allyship looks like in this moment, it is Alex and Renee. It is Alex and Renee. Alex, who they had a bone to pick with for more than a week and a half because he embarrassed them. These people, as we know, Joy, and have talked about ad nauseum, I know you all have too, 47 days of training does not get out of their systems what it meant to be bullied as a child or what it meant to not be the cool kid. So they're using the color of law, if we can even say that, that's in air quotes, and the badge that they didn't earn and power that they shouldn't have to assault people who are merely covering the treachery and the trauma and the terror that they're exacting on people. They pushed a white woman down the hill yesterday in Colorado, snatched her phone, an elderly white woman who another bystander was saying, call 911 over and over again. So this is where we are right now. Right? This is where we are right now, where we have to find the power, where we have to find the courage, where we've got to tap into the knowledge of what should exist and remind them of what they are supposed to represent in this hour.
Can I say something, Joy? And just to remind you all, and just to see how naked and shameless it is, Reverend Kenny Callahan, I'm sure you all saw this clip. He's a Minnesota pastor. He's a white man. ICE put guns in his face, a pastor. And the pastor said, Reverend Callahan, I'm not afraid. And then ICE agents said, according to him, you're white. You wouldn't be fun anyway. Today, they took 2 more kids from the school, the elementary school of Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old boy that they kidnapped and used as bait. They took 2 more kids today. Folks, they're coming after everyone. And the irony, as Angela said, is, oh, how dare you go and interrupt a house of worship? We're going to go after the FACE Act and KKK Act. You know what the ICE and DHS said? Oh, by the way, we can go in schools and we can go in churches and get people. So we can go to your church, your synagogue, your mosque, your school, and get your family member and your kid. But by the way, oh, no, you can't peacefully, and that's what it was. It was peaceful. You can't peacefully come into our church because our pastor, one of our pastors, is a freaking field ICE agent. All right. Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. This is as American as apple pie and slavery. And they're making an example for all out of Don Lemon, Ilhan Omar, and specifically these black and brown bodies, this is what we're going to do to all of you. And Joy, if you remember, when it comes to allyship, right? Angela talked about allyship. In 1963, Martin Luther King sitting in a Birmingham jail. What did he write? The letter from a Birmingham jail. What did he say? I must regretfully admit that the white moderate is a greater obstacle to peace than the white citizens counselor and the Ku Klux Klaner, the man who wants order instead of justice, a person who tells us in 2026 civility. They did politics the right way. Reach out. Now, what happened in the next year? They realized, okay, these young black, that's what they were, young black activists. We need to be allied with white bodies, Joy, because when white blood is spilled, America cares. When white bodies are beaten, America cares. Let's be honest, our lives don't matter as much. Our rage doesn't matter as much. Our grievance doesn't matter as much. I've been saying it for a while, right? So what did they do next year in Mississippi? They got white children of, some upper middle class folks to sit with them and engage in these, these protests. And those white folks, and these for all the white people watching, the spicy whites that Joy says, those white people were seen as race traitors. White folks hated those white people worse than they hated the black and brown people. They said, you betrayed your race. You are a race traitor. The same thing we're seeing now, Joy. Fast forward, it's the last week. Look how they're demonizing Alex Preddy. Look how they're demonizing Renee Nicole Good. Race traitors, lesbian B, effing B. And I go back to the same point, and I'll jump off now because I know you have smarter people than me coming on, is if they can come after Renee Nicole Good, if they can come after Mahmoud Khalil, if they can come after Kilmar Abrego Garcia, if they can come after Alex Preddy, they're going to come after you. Yeah. If you are white, if you feel like you have the complexion for your protection, if you feel like you have a Tesla and live in a zip code, they don't care. Fascists don't care. Joy, if I may, for the black and brown and Asian brothers and sisters who voted for Donald Trump because of the tax cuts, because you drink rosé with Karen, because you golf with Chet, because you're the good ones, just keeping it real, because the trans are too weird, they see you as the enemy. They just killed Renee Nicole Good and they killed Alex Preddy. And they said, Don Lemon, we know he's very popular and famous. We don't care. We're going to make an example out of him. For those who think that the institutions and the law will protect you, several judges threw out their attempt to arrest Don Lemon. It went to an appeals court. They threw it out. They did it anyway. Yeah. They did a case against Letitia James anyway. They did a case against James Comey anyway. They don't care. They don't care. And so I need all of you to put your bodies on the line. If you're not willing to put your bodies on the line, I need all of you to speak up. I know people might not like hearing this. I'm talking about corporate America. I'm talking about a lot of our colleagues, Angela and Joy, who thinks that they're doing politics the right way, who policed me and Angela when we were on CNN, who Joy told you, now, Joy, now, don't talk too much about Palestine. Come on now, Joy, don't be that mean against MAGA. How dare you say the word racist and authoritarian? Wake up. They went after Don, and I need a lot of those privileged white folks and people of color to realize that if they can terrorize your city, if they can terrorize Minneapolis, they're going to terrorize your city. I appreciate you, Joy. I appreciate you, Angela. I appreciate you, Reverend. I appreciate all of the people who are doing this work. I think we have to stand in solidarity with each other. We have a underground media network that we've created over the past year where we look after each other. I recommend all of you do the same thing. And I will say this to inspire you. In Minnesota right now, folks, they're learning from black and brown communities. They're learning from what Latinos have done in LA. They've learned what people have done in Chicago. They've learned what black communities have put up with for centuries. I interviewed someone yesterday, white man, who said, we don't have faith in law enforcement. We don't have faith in Democrats. We don't have faith in institutions. We have faith in each other. We're going to protect each other. They're not armed with AR-15s. You know what they're armed with? They come out with whistles. They come out with their cameras. They talk to each other. They patrol their neighborhoods. They have each other's back. We need empathy. We need community. Again, if they can come after Renee Nicole Good, they'll come after you. If they can come after Don Lemon, they'll come after you, everyone at CBS and in New York Times. And folks, we need to be in community and solidarity. Fascists come for everyone, but they're weak, Joy. This is why they're doing it. They're weak. You saw the polls. Yeah. Negative double digits on everything. a plurality of Americans for the first time in our lifetime, Joey, want to abolish ICE.
Yeah.
For a week, they're on the back foot, and this is why they're at their most violent and most desperate. Thank you for listening to me and tolerating my rants, and I appreciate you always giving me a space.
Thank you, Wajahat Ali. Please subscribe to The Left Hook. It is good stuff on Substack. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you for the CNNT as well. Let me read you all this news item that Waj alerted us to. 2 more Minnesota children, a 2nd grader and a 5th grader, were taken into custody with their mother on Thursday by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. The children are from the same Columbia Heights Elementary School as Liam Conejo Ramos, the 5-year-old whose detainment by ICE last week gripped the Twin Cities and the nation as images of the small boy flanked by agents in his winter hat circulated online. Columbia high school officials said Thursday's detention happened after agents apprehended the children's mother during her court appointment earlier that day. Mark, it's clear that they are terrorizing Minneapolis, putting Tom Homan in place of the little short guy. It didn't make any difference at all.
No. And again, this is intimidation through violence, intimidation through threat. And they are desperate, knowing the position that they are in politically. And so they have no choice but to go to that lowest common denominator of hatred and vitriol and violence and division and racism and xenophobia, among other things. Angela's a lawyer here, but I was just looking up a couple of things. Historically, this happened quite a bit in the civil rights movement. Journalists who covered Dr. King in the South were often accused of collusion, including most famously Richard Valeriani of NBC and even Dan Rather. That was the crux, and I think this will be the legal argument for Don's team. The crux of New York Times v. Sullivan ruled in 1964, 9-0, protecting this very type of thing. The New York Times was attacked by Southern governors because they ran a full paid-for ad on behalf of the committee to defend Martin Luther King Jr. And then the Supreme Court ruled, said that's not collusion, and that there should be broad and robust debate. That's the broad and robust debate principle in that ruling. Whereas journalists can do that, they can share that type of information in the interest of the public good. So hopefully that will happen. Now, that was 9-0 in 64. We know we have a very, very different Supreme Court now. Talk about collusion with the president. But yeah, again, I agree with everything that Waj said. We are at a very difficult now. My family is texting me now saying we need to come up with an arrest plan for you, Mark. So I'm not really worried about that, nor do I fear it at all, because often this is the price that has to be paid when this happens. Is in the case of Don Lemon, and in the case of what we've done, going independent. All of us at one point have been on the corporate platform, so to speak. But there's a level of freedom in doing what we do now. Even when we're arrested, we're still free. And we have to believe that. And I hope people would keep that in mind and not operate out of a position of fear. We have seen this movie before. And in the words of Dr. King, no matter what they do, the arc of justice will bend, and it will bend ultimately in our favor. And I think the greatest fear they have was something else Dr. King said. He said, whatever you do to us, by our ability and capacity to resist and suffer, we will win you over too. And the polls are saying that. White men, white college men are like, wait a minute, what's up with this stuff? We're not feeling Alex Pretty. We're not feeling the fact that this economy is no better as you promised it would be. And that's what they fear. Lastly, I'll just remind everyone, we know who really signs this man's checks. And so the chaos is also deliberate, because he doesn't really work for this country. He works for another one. So if you can get America in a maelstrom and a lot of conflict and everybody pitted against each other, and you can do that in Europe too with NATO, he's doing his job. But we will stand for that. Everyone, even those who aren't journalists, we must stand for our brother Don at this hour. This is This is really terrible. The First Amendment is sacrosanct, and we must make sure it does not fall.
Mark Thompson, please follow him at Make It Plain. Please subscribe to all of the things. Make sure that you keep up with this, brother. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Joy, he's
Oh,
sorry.
wait, hold on. Don't go yet, Mark. I think Angela has words that she wants you to hear. Go ahead, Angela.
Oh,
please.
I didn't even mean for Mark. I was going to tell you something before you asked me another question.
Oh, no, go for it, please.
One of the things that I want to make sure I do, I've been emphasizing the KKK Act because it's so ridiculous, but there's another statute that they used to charge Don, Georgia, a gentleman, an attorney by the name of Jamel Lundy. Jamel Lundy, I believe. It's Jamael Lundy. And I'm trying to get confirmation on the last person who was charged and arrested today. The other statute that they're relying on is the FACES Act. The FACE Act, excuse me. The FACE Act of 1994. You want to know who the bill sponsor was? Ted Kennedy. So let's be very clear about what the intention of the FACE Act was, because clearly for this administration with the Department of Injustice, we have to go and tell you what the intention of the law was, because you're reading words and you just making connections that don't exist. So I hope that y'all are tuned in. Cash, maybe you're watching since you're tapping everything. The Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act of 1994 amends the Federal Criminal Code to prohibit intentional injuring, intimidating, or interfering with, or attempting to injure, intimidate, or interfere any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction because that person is or has been, or in order to intimidate such person or any other person or any class of persons from obtaining or providing reproductive health services.
Right.
That's the first part. The next part is about their ability to exercise their First Amendment right of religious freedom. So continue to worship, but while you worshiping, it's some people over here that got some questions. You're not prohibited. Nobody's blocking you. There's been no physical challenge. And here's what I think is really important. There is language in the act because maybe Ted Kennedy was a prophet, and he knew that people were going to have to understand the intention. They never sought to challenge, obstruct, or get in the way with, or conflict with the First Amendment. It's all throughout here. A part of the First Amendment is the freedom of the press. What Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested for was exercising their right to freedom of the press, to inform the people. These are journalists. They're not activist journalists. They are journalists. You can go to any single one of their feeds where they are talking to people on the ground in Minnesota or anywhere else. They ask questions. They report the news. That is what this is. Neither one of these charges stand. Neither one of them.
We certainly hope not. I have no trust in the United States Supreme Court majority to uphold the First Amendment, nor are they upholding the Second Amendment. Let us note that Alex Preddy, who was a licensed firearm holder, was assaulted twice by Border Patrol and or ICE. He was assaulted at least a week before, at least if you believe that video that's circulating that the BBC has obtained. What I see in that video is his same holstered firearm in his holster behind his back. He never draws it, even after he's being beaten up and assaulted. He actually should have had a case for assault by those federal officers the first time. And I know that they think that that video is damning of him and makes him look like an insurrectionist, but all it makes it look like as an assault victim who they may have recognized a week later. Let me really quickly read you all. The Committee to Protect Journalists has released a statement saying this is an egregious attack on the First Amendment and on journalists' ability to do their work. Said CPJ CEO Jody Ginsburg. As an international organization, we know that the treatment of journalists is a leading indicator of the condition of a country's democracy. These arrests are just the latest in a string of egregious and escalating threats to the press in the United States and an attack on people's right to know. Before I let both of you go, I want to see if you each have one more closing comment. I will start with you, Angela. What should we be looking out for here, in addition to supporting any organization that's raising money to ensure that Georgia Fort and Don Lemon — Don has a great lawyer. Abby Lowell is a esteemed, very well-known attorney. But we want to make sure Georgia has equally great counsel and equally great support. Please tell us what we need to do next.
Well, here's the first thing that I want us to understand. In Minnesota today, Georgia Fort has a hearing at Minneapolis Federal Court. That's important. For those of you on the ground in Minneapolis, I encourage you to get there. For those of you who are watching at home and want to do something, donate to the Bail Fund. There's one set up through Minnesota Freedom Fund. I encourage you all to donate. You do not know when you will need someone to sow that same seed for you. I will also say that in just a moment here, there will be a press conference in Minneapolis. It was moved to the City Hall Rotunda. That is at 11 a.m. Central Time. I'm sorry, let me make sure I say that. It's 11 a.m. Central Time at Minneapolis City Hall, at the Minneapolis City Hall Rotunda. Again, it's not just Don Lemon. It's not just Georgia Fort. It is also Jamel Lundy, and there's one more person's name I will try to get to you, Joy, so you can report it out to your audience. But what I'm saying is, now is not the time to sit in, it's a shame. Now is not a time to say, you know what, I'm afraid, let me just lay low. Now is not the time. If we don't stand up now in this 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I don't know when we do. I know we've never been free in this country. I would like to see what it tastes like. I would like to see what it feels like. But we will not ever understand that true freedom and liberation if we don't stand up in treacherous times like these. Yes, it is scary. I shed a tear before I came on with you, Joy. Part of it is like the stress and the adrenaline of it all. Part of it is guilt because now I'm not in Minnesota, and I told Georgia we have her back. We do have her back, but I hate that she and her family are going through this in an isolated way. I pray that she can feel the love from all of us. And same thing with Don. Like, these folks are doing what they can. They're putting their bodies on the line, their cameras on the line, their microphones on the line, just to ensure that we are informed of the violence that is happening every single day, of how treacherous this administration is. And for that, they should be protected, they should be upheld, and they should be recognized for their courage, and certainly not in jail.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much, Angela Rye. Native Land Pod is where you can find Angela. And if you have 5 more minutes to hang on, because I'm gonna get a last word from Mark before I have one more question for you. But Mark, please, last word for you.
Well, I guess it's my second last word, but you know, news is coming through. Let me just say, what the committee posted and supported on is right on time. And you mentioned the NRA, folks. This is a president. The NRA sent out a tweet defending Alex Preddy's rights. And see, that caused some short circuiting because the MAGA base also supports the Second Amendment. So when the NRA says, wait a minute, you can't kill Alex Preddy because he has the Second Amendment right to hold a gun. So we need to keep that in mind. Yeah. Don, Georgia, all the other journalists know that we are all standing with you. And Angela's right, folks. We can't sit back and be spectators in this. And I'm not saying this out of any self-interest. Right here, right now, everyone under the sound of our voices, there's Ellie, support independent journalism. Black journalists, National Association of Black Journalists, National Newspaper Publishers, National Association of Hispanic Publishers, alternative publishers, everywhere there's, because much of the freedoms that have been won in this country have been won for that reason. I was just at the Jackie Robinson Museum last night. Howard Bryant's book came out. If it wasn't for independent journalism, Jackie Robinson never would have integrated the major leagues and started the civil rights movement in 1940. Right. It's this type of journalism that does that. And just lastly, again, we just want to remind everyone of what James Baldwin said to Angela Davis and Don Lemon and Georgia Fort and others in this position now. We must decide that we will render impassable the corridor between their freedom and their incarceration. For if they come for one of us in the morning, they will come for the rest of us in the night. Be ready.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mark Thompson. Before I let you go, Angela, I did want to ask you specifically about the difference here, because I wanted to clarify. So we know that they are now attempting to use this FACES Act, which is very ironic. Liz Winstead was talking about it earlier. She was one of the people who helped advocate for that because they were trying to protect abortion clinics. What is your level of confidence that, given how you just read the statute, it seems so clear? What is your level of confidence that this will be a quick dismissal, given the fact that it does appear on the face that this is unconstitutional? I'm surprised, but I guess you can get a grand jury to kind of do anything you want if you can find the right grand jury.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that they impaneled a grand jury. I don't.
I think there was.
I just, it's hard for me to believe that that is the case. If they did, though, I have full confidence that courts of conviction will absolutely throw this case out. I wanted to tell you, Joy, also, and Ellie, my real constitutional scholar's on, so I defer to him, but I will just tell you The fourth person who was arrested was a co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota. His name is Tre'Ern Cruz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, so I will say Mr. Cruz, Crews. He is a fellow at the Bush Foundation, or was a fellow. Yeah, still a fellow at the Bush Foundation, located in St. Paul, Minnesota. He has done all types of incredible work on the ground. This might be an old axe to grind from George Floyd protests after George Floyd was tragically murdered in Minnesota as well. We cannot forget the blood shed on those streets long before Renee Good and Alex Preddy. There was also Philando Castile. There was also George Floyd. There were also so many others we cannot name. And Joy, all I've got to tell you is these folks are relying on their white power to overextend, cover, be above the law. That is what they are hoping for. They are hoping that the text of the statutes don't even matter. It's the fact that they charged them and they said it and their word is sufficient, not the law. So I'm challenging the courts to do the right thing.
Angela Rye, thank you very much. We have multiple ways that we can utilize the brilliance of Angela Rye, because we're also using her as an attorney on staff here today. But we've also got Elie Mystal, who's also
much better attorney.
I don't know. You guys are both, to me, you guys are equal. I love both of you the same. You're both my friends. But let me bring you in here, Elie, to ask you that same question, because it does seem to me that it's such a blatant violation of the First Amendment, but so is arresting protesters. And they've been doing that. The fact that they've been able to do this means that they have, at least on some level, bent the law, bent the Constitution to their will, at least for now. How confident are you that this ends quickly?
What the fuck is the point of a court order if you can then go on and do this? Let us not forget that these people went to a federal district court in Minnesota and asked specifically for an arrest warrant for Don Lemon, and the judge told them no. And then they appealed to a federal circuit, and that judge told them no. They've had 2 court orders telling them that they can't arrest Lemon. Now they come up, and I totally agree with Angela, with this fake-ass grand jury bull crap for Lemon and Fort. But you notice they didn't even say that they got a grand jury impaneled to arrest Cruz and Lundy, the other 2 journalists that were taken away. When you ask me, is this going to hold up in court? I'm inclined to say no because of what you're saying, Joy, because it's such a clear violation of the First Amendment. But at this point, I don't even feel like we're talking about the First Amendment. I think we're talking about the Fugitive Slave Act. I think I think this is an application of the Fugitive Slave Clause that was gotten rid of in the Constitution with the 13th Amendment, because that's more like what we're seeing here. And I am not being hyperbolic. When Bondi tweeted out that they arrested Lemon, they tweeted it out with an emoji of chains. Saying, "We got Don Lemon," chains emoji. They're not being subtle about what's happening here. And the idea that this is even passably constitutional, passably legal is complete bollocks. This is a political arrest. This is this kind of shit they would pull in South Africa under apartheid. That is what we're seeing here. There is no, and I cannot emphasize this enough, no constitutional basis to arrest journalists who were covering a protest after you've gotten a federal magistrate and an appeals court judge to tell you, no, you cannot have that arrest warrant. There is no basis here whatsoever.
I'm asking the team if they can see if they can find that tweet from Pam Bondi and see if we can grab that and see if we can show that to you.
And I'm going to let y'all go. I love you. I'm going to let you go. If we can, let's all do something together, Joy, because in just a moment, they're going live from that presser, and I want to make sure we take that. So I'm going to go do that, and please, let's all come together. I love y'all. Thank you for doing this, Joy.
We're going to see if we can try to get that link as well so that we can hopefully... if we can get a link from, let's see, who can find us a link? Let's just ask the team if you guys can please find the live link, and then we'll try to go live. But while we're waiting for that link to come up live, Elie, Lev Parnas had come on the show a couple of times, and he reported on his Substack, Lev Remembers, that the regime has been looking to change the complexion, literally, of what's happening in Minneapolis from white to black. They have absorbed the backlash over the murder, first of Renee Good, and they were even starting after that. And then on top of it, Alex Preddy was murdered while exercising his Second Amendment right to carry. He wasn't even pulling a weapon, but he just had one. And then Donald Trump ran afoul of the NRA, as you heard Wajahat Ali mention earlier. And Mark Thompson mentioned earlier. And so then they had a Second Amendment problem. And they had a Fifth Amendment problem and Fourth Amendment problem, all of these issues. And that they had wanted very much from the Stephen Miller wing of the regime to make the face of what they want to be an insurrection act triggering, siege in the streets. They want that face to be Black. I now note that at least 3 of the 4 people that have been mentioned, I know to be African American, I know to be Black. This feels very deliberate to me, that they want to ostentatiously arrest not just journalists, but Black journalists.
You got to ask yourself, why are they attacking Minneapolis, right? They went to Los Angeles. They went to Portland. Why did they attack Minneapolis? And it's because of George Floyd. Like, Minneapolis was attacked. Minneapolis is currently under occupation because of George Floyd and because of Ilhan Omar and Somali immigrants in Minnesota. And they assumed that when they occupied Minneapolis, Black people would rise up, be in the streets, and Black people would be the ones that they were killing, shooting, brutalizing, mutilating, and the whole nine. Right. And they would have their race war. Right. And it didn't work out that way. Didn't happen that way. White people, you call them, Joy, you're spicy whites. White people showed up. White people showed up, and white people have been the face of the resistance in Minneapolis. And Trump doesn't like that. Miller doesn't like that. Miller doesn't like the visuals of shooting white men. That wasn't their plan. Their plan was always to kill Black and brown people and then watch the larger white community in this country being like, oh, it's so sad they kill Black people anyway. What about my tax break? Like that was the calculus that they were counting on. And so I absolutely think that targeting Black journalists, again, with slave emojis, with this kind of overt appeal to a race war, is meant to inflame the Black community, inflame activists, get Black people on the front lines, reignite the George Floyd level protests. That's right. So they can kill us. And so that we can be the victims of their race war, as opposed to white folks like Renee Good and Alex Preddy. It's not subtle, and I think that's my main point right now. It is not at all subtle what they are trying to do at this point.
I want to read to you all a little bit about the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. This is the reason we talk about history so much on this show. We've talked about it before, and the analogy of the ICE masked regime agents. You could call them slave catchers, because they are very analogous to the slave catchers, who, as we explained, I think it was on our last show, became a very lucrative industry following a very lucrative industry in the country following the embedding of a Fugitive Slave Act in the Constitution, and then two supplemental acts that were passed by Congress on top of the fact that it was already in the Constitution. They passed 2. The one in 1850, which was passed by Congress, is in 1850. So you're talking about, 15 years before the Civil War, right? A little bit not long before the Civil War. The act required that slaves be returned to their so-called owners, even if they were in a free state. Even if they were in a free state. This is also important. The act made the federal government responsible for finding, returning, and trying escaped slaves. Why does that matter here? Because states like Minnesota are free states when it comes to immigration. They are sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. What the federal government is asserting, I'm not an attorney, I'm going to let Ellie weigh in and correct what I'm about to say. The federal government is asserting that they can enter a sanctuary city and extract immigrants on the same basis that federally mandated slave catchers could enter free states like New Hampshire and Massachusetts and take Black people back down south for slavery. Is that an accurate way of reading it, Ellie?
That is how I'm reading it. And again, you're quoting the Fugitive Slave Act, which was, as you say, passed in 1850. But people always like to forget that act simply enforced a constitutional provision.
That's right.
The Fugitive Slave Act is part of the original Constitution. It's in Article 4. No person held into service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, after escaping to another, shall be discharged from service, but shall be delivered upon the claim of the party to whom such service or labor must be due. That's in the original Constitution. Now, to pull it back to 30,000 feet, why is this there? Why do we have fugitive slaves laws? Why did the founders think that they were important? Why did the people in 1850 think they were important? Because they violate states' rights.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the Southerners, the MAGA people, they're all states' rights forever, except for them slaves. And so you needed a constitutional a provision. You needed an act of legislation to violate the otherwise invaluable rights of the states to police themselves. The police power in the Constitution is reserved to the states. So to bring it into the modern day, it is up to Minnesota to decide which people are arrested, which people are deported, which people have to follow the laws of the state of Minnesota. That is a Minnesota police issue, not a federal police issue. To break through those states' rights, to break through the 10th Amendment, which explicitly reserves the police power to the states, you need federal legislation, you need constitutional amendments, right? In the 1850s, it was the Fugitive Slave Act. In our modern day, it's this Insurrection Act, immigration BS that they've cooked up with ICE. But it's the same fundamental idea. How do we take the police power away from the states to capture Black and brown people that we don't like? That is the connective tissue between one and the other.
And you just saw, Jason just pulled it down, but we showed you the post from Pam Bondi, who ostensibly is supposed to be the enforcer, the highest level enforcer other than the president of our nation's laws and constitution. Pam Bondi's office tweeting out a slave emoji picture celebrating the arrest of Don Lemon. She does not mention the other three people arrested.
That was done. That was the White House.
That was the White House directly.
Oh, the White House.
That was Bondi. That was the White House directly. Great.
Put up
Great.
Bondi's tweet. Yeah, that was the White House directly that had the chains at the
that had the chain. So it was the White House. Perfect. So then that is
back up just to show you.
Absolutely. Speaking again, then for Donald Trump himself, the chain emojis, Donald Trump living out his slave master fantasy and arresting the recalcitrant.
While he lives in a house that slaves built.
Correct. And erases the entire history of slavery such that people will not understand what's happening. And I will say again, we're waiting to see if we can get there's a Mother Jones journalist who we're trying to get on as well to talk about this. There is an entire connective tissue between the white Christian nationalist movement and that church in Minneapolis. The man who founded that church, he lived in Minneapolis for 18 years, is the guy who authored the book, The Sin of Empathy. He is the underling to Doug Wilson, the sort of boss of the sort of white Christian nationalist movement in the country, whose spin-off church, Pete Hegseth, attends in Washington, D.C. So we are seeing white Christian nationalism, which also is what justified slavery. Walk me through, Elie Mystal, how the John Roberts Supreme Court, there we go. There is Attorney General Pam Bondi's post at my direction. At my direction this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Traherne Jean Cruz, Georgia Fort, and Jamuel Liddell Lundy in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. More details soon. Coordinated attack, Elie, by journalists.
They were covering a protest. It's what journalists do. And I understand that, because these people think that Bari Weiss is a journalist, they might not understand what journalism is. I'll give them that. But all Don Lemon and those other three people were doing was covering a protest that started inside a church. And they turned their cell phones on, and they recorded it, and they reported on it. That's what journalists do. But it's the same idea that, so many people have gotten brutalized, attacked, arrested by ICE, just trying to film them, just trying to film what they do. So many people have been, ICE, we almost idle over this issue. We almost forget that it's an issue. But ICE is not supposed to be out here wearing masks with no identification. Law enforcement is supposed to identify themselves before they take action. And that's important because I read a story yesterday about how, hundreds of women have been abducted and sexually assaulted by men pretending to be ICE, right? Which men can get away with because ICE doesn't have to identify itself.
Well,
and one of the reasons...
To that point really quick, I'm sorry, Elite, because this is something I've been obsessing with. Thank you for bringing it up. Because if a man who actually was ICE assaulted a woman, sexually assaulted a woman, first of all, how would you identify your attacker? They have on a mask. And number two, who the hell would you tell? The FBI? You think Kash Patel's FBI is going to investigate? So they don't even have to be pretend ICE. The actual ICE could sexually assault any woman they have in their custody. They're throwing women into vans. No one knows who they are. They don't have a badge. They don't have a name tag, and you can't see their face. So if a real ICE person assaulted someone, how would you even report it to whom?
It's why we need them to identify themselves. Like, identification is the first step. Look, we still don't know who killed Alex Preddy.
Right.
We still don't know. It was on video, and we still don't know because the person wasn't required to identify themselves. Like, this is fascism 101. Like,
the only reason we know who killed Renee Nicole Good is the stupidity of J.D. Vance, who gave so many details about his past issues, including being dragged by a car he was trying to smash through the window of. That's how people discovered him. It was through the foolish stupidity and incompetence of J.D. Vance that we even know who that guy is.
100%. I see Love's not Joy. I got to hop off and write.
Thank you very much. Ellie. Thank you. Going right.
Hey,
what have you got? What
hey,
update?
Joy. Yeah, no, there's some interesting stuff happening. So for what I'm hearing, there's a coordinated. This is all coordinated. We had what happened in Georgia yesterday. What happened with Don today. There's some more arrests that I'm hearing that are coming also, either later today or tomorrow. And also today there was a dump of the Epstein files, 3.5 million files. And what I'm hearing is, and I'll be coming to you as soon as I hear it, but that there's something big that's about to break, having to do with the elections, having to do with some information, and all of it is tied together. And so that's all I have right now. But something big is happening behind the scenes right now.
When you say something big, do we think something about the Epstein files? Because it would be convenient for them to do a high-profile arrest of Don Lemon plus 3 other journalists. We cannot forget, but Don is the big target here. He's the one tweeting out a big arrest there, seizing the voter rolls in Fulton County, Georgia, which is something that the QAnon wing of Donald Trump's support network wanted done in 2020. They did not do it because they tried to install an attorney general. I think his name was Mr. Clark, who was going to do it, but they couldn't get him through, so they weren't able to seize the voter rolls, but they still want to fake prove. Donald Trump wants for his own psychological needs. He's such a needy little bitch that he needs to still believe he won the election in Georgia. So they want to go, and now once they have custody of those ballots, they could forge the ballots. They could do whatever they want with the ballots. They can completely alter the ballots. We have now there's no chain of custody here. So they want to try to rig in the past, retroactively rig Georgia. But is this all a distraction, a very high profile distraction, both to appease Donald Trump's ego, but also to cover up for whatever is coming out in those Epstein files?
I think you're 100% right, but I think it's a combination, a little bit more than just a distraction, because they are what I'm hearing, and Tulsi Gabbard's been very heavily involved. So see the way they're using these things, they're distractions, but they also have meanings. When they're throwing all of these things at you, you don't know what is a true distraction and what is really true. So that's why I want to make it very clear. The fact that they arrested Don Lemon, that was not coincidence. Also, he was arrested under federal charges. charges, which puts him in the federal system, not state charges, which would have been filed in Minneapolis, which the judges there didn't, allow them to indict him. So that's another thing. The other thing is that what you said about the Epstein files is 100% right, because Todd Blanche also came out today and made a very curious statement. I just spoke to Tara Palmieri, and she told me that he came out and said that basically in this new dump of Epstein files and 3.5 million, there's not going to be any information about any men that abused women. Just think about that. 3.5 million dump, and he's already coming out saying that there's not going to be any information in this dump about any powerful men that are sexually abused or trafficked or did anything to women, no criminal, nothing like that.
The names of the men. I mean, is it true, Lev, that Ghislaine Maxwell has issued essentially a statement saying, basically saying that there were other co-conspirators and that she's aware that there were other unindicted co-conspirators, essentially threatening that if she doesn't get a pardon, she might want to talk about those other unindicted co-conspirators?
100%. That's why you're seeing all of this play out, because and you're seeing the timing, also the timing of the dump, where we saw all of a sudden Michael Cohen's proffer from his attorney saying that he had information about Epstein and Donald Trump, and that he was trying to get Rule 35 while he was out of prison. And literally right after that, he came out and wrote a letter saying that Letitia James and Alvin Bragg were coercing him. This was also part of, because the other thing a lot of people don't realize, there was another proffer that Michael Cohen did that is in the files that is being scrubbed right now. That's why right after the DOJ came out, Pam Bondi came out and said, we don't have to send you any files. It's the executive branch. These little things are being missed because of all the attention that's being drawn, which rightfully so, obviously what's happening.
Back up a little bit, Lev. I'm sorry. Back up again. Michael Cohen's proffer, they're saying they've disappeared a proffer, him now coming out and sort of backing off, saying he doesn't know anything about the Epstein files. Explain that again.
Yeah, let me bring you up to speed, because this is some stuff that, so what happened was one of Ellie Leonard, she's also independent journalist here on Substack, doing a lot of great work going through the Epstein files, and we were on the show, me, her, and Wajahid Ali, and one of her subscribers found in the Epstein dump a letter that was sent from Michael Cohen's attorneys to the Southern District of New York in 2019, while Michael Cohen was in prison, saying that he had sufficient information about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein to be able to use to get out of prison. When we confronted Michael Cohen on this, Michael Cohen obviously went berserk, and that's why Midas Touch, everybody has jumped off the bag and left him alone. But I've been speaking to my sources on the inside, that because you got to understand, me and Michael Cohen had the same attorney. Unfortunately, we went to the same prison. We had the same prosecutor that prosecuted us, and we went through that. So what happened was, when Michael Cohen, in that proffer, there was another proffer that they came, because in that letter, I don't know if your producers could get you that, so you could see that the ASU's, the Southern District of New York prosecutors said to him that they didn't believe Michael Cohen. So what my sources are telling me is that Michael Cohen went back to his attorneys and gave him more information about a Jane Doe story. Jane Doe, which is, we are looking into, it looks like Jane Doe and Katie Johnson is the same person. And basically Michael Cohen was going to give this information. When we found that in the Epstein files in the dump and confronted him, Michael Cohen went, that's when we reported that he reached out to the Trump campaign and tried to get a pardon. That's when he wrote that letter. Part of it was also telling them that there's another proffer probably in there, and that's why they were scrubbing it, looking for that other part where Michael Cohen gave more information to try to get out of prison earlier.
So it sounds to me, Lev, if I put it all together, that Donald Trump and the regime, they are escalating right now because they took a hit, because DHS and ICE killed 2 white civilians, 2 white Americans, a mom of 3 and an ICU nurse who worked for the VA. They've angered the NRA by attempting to besmirch Mr. Preddy for using his Second Amendment rights, not having ever drawn a pistol, but getting beaten up a week before he was killed. not drawing his weapon, even though he was being beaten up in the street by DHS agents because he kicked their car, allegedly. And then he gets shot a week later. And then they are taking heat because of those two deaths. And so they want, as you reported, to make the Minnesota situation into a situation that is Black centered. So they want it to be Black people being brutalized, Black people protesting, so that they can finally turn it into a race war sort of situation. And that because these Black journalists entered that church, which is a key church in the white Christian nationalist movement, again, founded by the guy who wrote The Sin of Empathy on the imprint owned by Doug Wilson. Pastor Doug Wilson owns the imprint that published his Canon Press, I think it's called, and that also hosts his podcast, okay? Doug Wilson being the chief pastor of the white Christian nationalist movement and Hegseth's pastor. With all of this happening, they've decided that they are going to not only erase the history of what they did to Alex Preddy and to Ray Nicole Good, they're going to erase Donald Trump's loss in 2020, and they're going to erase the crimes of all, not just of Donald Trump, whatever he did around Jeffrey Epstein, but of all the elite men who were preying on children through Jeffrey Epstein. They are going to erase their history, erase it all, and then they're going to steal the election so that there's no Congress that can do anything about it. Have I summarized it fairly accurately?
Joey, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I could just tell you the one thing that I want to point out that you have hit the nail on the dot is, and I'm in my Substack letter I'm writing later today is Donald Trump didn't get what they wanted, a Black or a brown man or woman that got shot that was an undocumented criminal. They got the two white people, and now they basically got what they wanted with Don Lemon, a Black gay man, independent journalist that they're basically going to use to incite, and this is very important, to try to incite, riots, try to incite again, peaceful protests into riots, because this is now their game. This is what they wanted in the beginning. This is what they're trying to do, because at the end of the game, what I'm hearing is Stephen Miller is pushing extremely hard for the insurrection, law, and they're not backing down. The fact that Holman was there, he's not. You're still getting people getting arrested, taking off the street. I think Waj was telling me something about that there was two young kids again, I think either arrested or picked up
from the same preschool, but two more children from the same preschool where little Liam Ramos was taken. They've now taken two more children. They are stealing children. They're abducting moms in front of their children. They're leaving children alone in homes by taking their mother off of the street. They're escalating the brutality. They're escalating the cruelty. They're escalating all of the outrages. I'm surprised they just haven't killed more people, because they want a insurrection style situation to happen in Minnesota. But here's the problem, Lev. The people who are doing this, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, Tom Homan, even the little miniature guy who was in charge, Greg Bovino.
That little Nazi, yeah.
The problem they have is they are acting with the desire to make Black people act a certain way, and personally don't know any Black people. The only Black people Donald Trump knows are people who've ever had a case calling them a sex offender or a rapist. The only friends that he has that are Black are people that have jackets on them for sexual assault, sexual abuse, or sexual harassment. They don't actually know any Black people. The last Black woman Donald Trump knew was Omarosa, and she was an actor on The Apprentice, so he really didn't know her either. And so they think that Black people are going to riot because of what they're doing to Don. What they don't understand is that what slavery did is it made Black people know white people really, really well.
Amen.
Black people really know white people. We have to live with white Americans. We have to study them in order to survive in this country. But you don't know us. You all never got to know us. You don't know anything about us. And if you think that we're going to be out in the streets rioting, you just need to meet more Black people, because you don't know Black people. We already see what you're doing. We know what you're doing. We are 2 steps ahead of you. It's just that we are trying to recruit our white brothers and sisters and our Latino brothers and sisters to catch up with us, because we've been told y'all what The Handmaid's Tale was going to be, and that this was Project 2025. We know what it is. And we know Don Lemon. And by the way, I can check on Don Lemon. Don Lemon is my friend. We are not rivals out here in independent media. We all know each other. We're all talking too. Let me bring in another journalist that's also out here in this space, knows Don Lemon very well, and that is, of course, our friend Jim Acosta. Jim, welcome to the madness. Your take on all of this.
Joy, it's great to be with you. My heart goes out to Don. I mean, I'm sure you've said this 1,000 times, but Don needs to know we're all behind him. We all stand behind him 1,000%. We'll always be with him. I mean, a couple of things. One is, I mean, this is obviously an assault on American democracy. It's an assault on freedom of the press. It's assault on free speech. And we just can't stand for it. And we have to make it extremely clear. We're not the legacy media. We're not the corporate media where we bow down to the dictator. We're going to be intimidated by these tactics. This is where independent media can really show what it's made of. And that is by standing together and standing tall and standing behind Don Lemon. And what you were just saying a few moments ago about The Handmaid's Tale, I mean, it's funny, but it's funny because it's true. And what is happening right now is, I mean, we are seeing in real time the march towards a fascist authoritarian government in this country. I mean, just a couple of days ago, the FBI raided an election headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. They just shot and killed somebody in the streets of Minneapolis, and Alex Preddy. I mean, look at what they're doing today, Joy. They're trying to distract from the situation that they have in ICE by releasing the Epstein files.
Right.
How bad is it for Donald Trump right now, where they're trying to use the Epstein files to distract from ICE? And so, Donald Trump is about as toxic right now politically as Jeffrey Epstein. He's probably polling at about the same level as Jeffrey Epstein, because that's how wildly and just totally unpopular he is right now as a president. And Joy, you and I predicted this. We've said this time and again that this is how it was going to be under Donald Trump. A lot of people didn't listen to us, as you and I have talked about. A lot of my Latina and Latino brothers and sisters out there did not listen. They did not take this seriously enough. And, now we're seeing what's happening in real time, where they're arresting and abducting 5-year-old boys from the streets of Minneapolis. And now they're in prison, like this little boy, Liam, in Texas. He's sad about his backpack and is he going to get his backpack and his little hat back? Because Donald Trump is jailing him right now in Texas. And so people need, Joy, sorry to go on a rant here, but I'm pissed. I'm really, really pissed. And people need to wake up in this country as to what is happening right now. They've got Don Lemon in jail because Donald Trump is politically toxic, and he needs distractions because he's totally out of control. And I think they're trying to hurt independent media. I really do. I think they're trying to hurt something that they can't contain. And they can't contain us, Joy.
All they're going to do is make Don Lemon's channel even bigger. He reached 1 million subscribers last year. He'll probably reach 2 million because of this. As soon as I'm done with this show, I'm going to be jumping on the Don Lemon show. So Lemonheads, I'm going to be popping over to the Don Lemon channel as soon as we're done with this live, because we're just going to continue to support Don Lemon's channel. We're going to grow it bigger. Right. We're going to make sure that we double and triple the size of independent media, and know that we are a cabal. We work together. We are not each other. We're competing. We are a team. We work as a team.
It's community.
We need each other. We're a community. Let me ask you this: how ironic it is, as you look at it, Jim. A lot of Cuban Americans came to this country to get away from the Castro regime. This is exactly what happened to you if you criticize the government in the Castro regime. A lot of Venezuelans came over here to escape from the Maduro madness. This is exactly what Maduro would have done to you. If a lot of people here from Hungary, Lev, the Europeans who came here from places like Hungary, this is exactly what would happen. Viktor Orban would do to you. This is what Kim Jong-un would do to you, or worse, if you criticize him. This is what Xi Jinping would do in China. So many people, obviously, this is what Putin, right? And Putin puts, put journalists in jail on a regular basis. This is what Bibi Netanyahu does, that and kill journalists. That is the irony, right? And I think for the community, particularly where you and I know very well in Florida, are you hearing from people who are saying, oh my God, we fled right back to Cuba and Venezuela? This is where,
Joy, I will tell you, I'll tell you something very personal. My dad is a Cuban refugee, came over to this country 3 weeks before the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. He knows what freedom is because he came here to this country for freedom. And when Donald Trump got back into the White House, my dad said, my God, I left Cuba and now I'm back in a dictatorship. And that to me it's depressing to think about, but that is where we are right now. And I've been to Cuba. I've reported from Cuba. I've reported from China and Vietnam and so on. And I've said many times to people, and I'll say it right here, go look at the countries around the world where they don't have freedom of the press and ask yourself, is this where you want to live? Would you want to live in Saudi Arabia where they still chop people's heads off? Would you want to live in China where they just say, hey, you know what, we got to put you in jail? Or Russia, like where they killed Alexei Navalny.
Yep.
And they took my press pass away in the first Trump administration, not just to rattle my cage, but to send a message to everybody in the press that we can come after you. We can make your life difficult. We can hurt you. We can hurt your colleagues.
I was there.
And that is what is happening
I remember
here.
them doing it. I was in that.
That is what is happening now. They're doing this now to Don to send a message.
Yeah.
And just to add to it, Jim, first of all, I remember them doing it to you. And the first, I was a part of it, listening to that, how they were trying to get you out. But even touching on the Venezuela commuting here in South Florida, I mean, Maria Salazar, who is going to have a lot of problems in her race coming down here, because the Venezuelan people are starting to realize that this was all a lie, because Donald Trump is dealing with somebody worse than Maduro. Delcy Rodriguez has, and I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but I'm obviously well informed of what's going on there. I could tell you that the people are starting to realize. That's why Donald Trump yesterday even came out and opened the airspace, trying to again do the theatrics.
They're about to reopen the U.S. embassy. They haven't changed the Maduro regime. They just got Maduro and his wife out and broke her hip.
Everything, right?
The secret police are still there.
Still there. Everything, yeah.
People in Venezuela, they're all still there. Trump is like, they're fine now. We're going to do business with them.
Yeah. And the problem is they're not doing business with the real companies like Exxon and Chevron. The people that are doing business right there are like my ex-partners, like the Harry Sargents, the Harold Hams, the big donors that spend that. This has been going on since 2018 when we were involved. This is not something new. This is these people were pushing Delcy Rodriguez for a while to get rid of Maduro. This was all pre-planned, and all goes back to again Putin and all of these people. So I mean, absolutely. People are starting to realize, and the one thing I want to also add to what Jim was saying is Donald Trump understands very well, and so does Stephen Miller. And every time I speak to my sources in the White House, that he's underwater. That is why there's such a major push, and that's why I'm saying I'm hearing something big is in the works that has to do with the elections. That's why you saw what they did in Georgia. That's why they arrested Don today. That's why they dumped the Epstein file. This is not coincidence, folks. This is part of a coordination, because people behind Donald Trump understand that they need to push Project 2025 as hard, as fast as possible. And that's why, like Joy says, like Jim says, this is community, your voices, not only independent journalism, but you need to make it loud, because right now Congress needs about where are all the this is not a right or left situation. Independent journalism should be supported by both sides, and that's why right now the push should be towards Congress. Get some of these backbones out there and get some more support, because otherwise, folks, I'm really worried we might not see elections in the midterms. What's going on? What I'm hearing.
My phone my phone is continuing to ring. Sorry about that, everyone, but you're absolutely right. I want to thank both of you guys. We're going to try to see if we can round out this call, but I wanted to make sure, Jim, if you had a final thought here, because it definitely, I've been to Cuba as well. And what I remember most about being in Havana is the men with the long guns who were intimidating the police. The police were afraid of the armed men in long guns who walked around watching everyone, making sure that no one did or said anything that they didn't allow. There were 3 TV channels. One had a children's propaganda show. One had supposedly the news, which was basically like South Korea style propaganda news. And the third was this weird sort of entertainment show. People, if they wanted to try to speak up to us, even when they would, hear me try to speak Spanish, my mediocre Spanish, but I lived in Florida so long, it's like a Cuban tinge sounding Spanish. So they would think, oh, maybe I can talk to her. And when they would finally get the courage to talk to me, they would only talk to me in whispers. People were so afraid to speak to an American. They were so scared to say anything. They would whisper. And sometimes what they would whisper is, how do I get out of here? How can you take me?
That's right.
Here? And That's the kind of society on the outside. If you just look at Havana from the outside, people are beautiful. People are, you see people having like parties sometimes in the streets. They'll do stuff outside and you think, oh, what a beautiful country. And then you see a door open and you see inside there are mattresses on the floor. They don't even have furniture. There's no food. There's no decent restaurants because they don't even have food. These people are terrorized and terrified to speak against their own government. That's what we're becoming.
Yes, and I mean, when I was there, I had minders following me. I mean, can you imagine a situation like that in this country? It makes you sick. But the other thing we should point out, and you alluded to this earlier, is that in Cuba, it's the people with the government who have the guns. And what did Donald Trump say the other day when he was trying to justify the killing of Alex Preddy? He said, "Oh, well, he had a gun, and you can't have guns." And so is that where we are right now, where only the MAGA people can have the guns? Is that where we're heading towards in this country? Because that to me doesn't sound like the Second Amendment. Can somebody take that to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court, does the Second Amendment only apply to MAGA people and the people that Donald Trump says they can have guns?
Or even worse, and this is what some MAGA people are finally waking up to. And if you're a MAGA person that's hate watching this right now, I need you to start getting on an Enough is Enough shirt like Lev, or a Free Don Lemon t-shirt.
Yeah, Free Don Lemon.
He didn't say only MAGA could have guns. He said he shouldn't have a gun. And they don't know what his idea. Nobody knows how this man voted.
That's
Nobody
true.
has any idea, right? No one has any idea. We know he was a gun owner, and he's a white man. And he worked at the VA and military connections. So what you and MAGA need to understand is if they say you can't have a gun and protest, Kyle Rittenhouse had a gun at a protest. Those guys Missouri had guns at protest. During the Obama administration, people would come out with long guns and protest him.
That's exactly right.
They mean like Cuba, only the government has the guns.
Remember Michigan? Remember they came in with the guns into the Michigan State Capitol?
They did that. That's right.
Yeah, but right now, those people are being armed, turned into a state militia. So if you're in the state militia, you can have guns and you can brutalize people. You can grab Latinas off the street. Maybe you just think she's a Latina. You just want to grab her and you just take her in a van. And what are they going to do about it? You have the guns. They don't mean that MAGA can have guns. They mean nobody can have guns. Y'all MAGA people wake up. Tyranny and fascism does not just limit itself to the people who vote for them, because eventually there are no elections. Nobody's voting. And you also get stripped of your firearms. Last word to you, Jim Acosta.
No, and I was just going to say, and I mark this down. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Donald Trump will betray MAGA.
Yes.
He will betray you. Everything that you care about in MAGA. If you're watching and you're MAGA, keep in mind, he is going to betray you. What did he say just the other day about housing prices? We're going to keep housing prices artificially high to help the rich people in this country, to support folks. You've been sold a bill of goods. You've been sold a pig in a poke. You got to give it up. This guy is never going to be on your side. He is exploiting you to try to take over and dominate this country so he can enrich himself and the rest of the oligarchy. It has nothing to do with nice, hardworking people in Omaha, Nebraska. That's not what this is about. This is about control. And arresting Don Lemon is about control. Rattling the cages of the protesters in Minneapolis and shooting them, gunning them down in the streets is about control. And people just have to wake up in this country because our democracy is being taken away from us in real time, Joy. That's why I'm always honored to be on with you, because I know you understand that the cause comes first. This is a cause that we're all a part of right now. And people need to understand that history is calling. They're calling you. And you need to answer that call and be a part of this. There's no time to sit on the sofa and sit this one out. You've got to be there in this moment. And this arrest of Don Lemon, it should wake up every American. Can you imagine if Barack Obama or Joe Biden tried to do something like this? Give me a break. Hell no. But they had respect for the First Amendment. They had respect for the Constitution. Donald Trump does not. But he will betray you. Make no mistake, MAGA. He will betray you.
Yeah.
And just remember that your old pal Jim told you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I so appreciate you, Costa. Lev Parnas. Any final reporting you want to give us before we let you go?
Right now, I'm gonna get off the phone and I'll call you later. Me and you are today's gonna be one of those days, so stay tuned.
Stay on my text messages. Stay on my text messages, my friend. Thank you very much. Lev Parnas. You can find him at Lev Remembers. Jim Acosta, the Jim Acosta Show. Make sure you follow all of them. I do want to note that we were trying to see if we could wait to get in the National Association of Black Journalists. We're waiting for a statement to come out with them. But when that happens, maybe we'll just go ahead and post that as soon as that is available. But what was said, I think, is absolutely true. What you guys have to understand is that they're not going to limit this to just the liberals. At a certain point, they're going to come for everyone. They're going to come for everyone, because at the end of the day, what they want is for the regime to be in complete control. And they're certainly not going to want to have millions and millions of armed Republicans running around who may change their mind and turn on them. They're not going to wait around to see if MAGA sticks with them or stays on side. They're going to make sure that everyone is subjugated. And you'll either do what they say and you'll be a part of it and you'll be a complicit in it, or per what happened to Alex Preddy and Renee Good, you might get dead. You might get arrested. And note that they are specifically going after Black journalists. This is very deliberate. They want the face of this to be Black people. They want the face of it not to be white anymore. They want the face of it to be Black, because they can't win. They can't win. They can't win the argument if the victims are white, because the majority in the country is still 57% white people. And so they need them to stay on side. And they've done everything in their power over the decades since 1619 to keep white people from siding with Black people, to keep white people from siding with indigenous people or brown people, to get brown people to side with white people against Black people. The division is very deliberate. There's a reason why we do our little fun thing where we talk about the spicy whites and the Latinos and the Latinas there. It's because we need to be all on the same side, because the elites, these economic elites who are also predatory, they're also lascivious, they were all doing weird shit with Jeffrey Epstein, or there are people that they know that are being protected that are in those Epstein files, know that at the end of the day, what they want is to be able to fake being Christian, but also be preying on children and women on the side, just like in The Handmaid's Tale. That book was prophecy, because those men were not moral. Those men were running around with the enslaved women who were used as prostitutes because they still wanted to do dirt. Note, they built a society and a system where they got to rape women who were forced to live in their homes to be in-house slaves, and then they would run out to the brothels with the out-of-house slaves. What they want is to be predators, but they want to be predators who there is no super predator over them. The super predator that's supposed to stop them is called the Constitution. The super predator that's supposed to stop the predator men and the predator, they're sort of the wives that hang on to them. The super predator is supposed to be the Constitution and the Congress, Article 1. But they've weakened and neutered Article 1. There is no Article 1. Jasmine Crockett's great. Ilhan Omar is fantastic. Maxwell Frost, who also got assaulted, fantastic. There are not enough of them to make Article 1 work, because Article 1 has been neutered. Donald Trump has already cut the legs out from under Article 1. He's cut the legs out from Article 3. The Supreme Court is obedient and obeisant. John Roberts wants to just let Trump do what he wants. We have that from background from someone who says that his advice to people who are alarmed at what Donald Trump is doing is give him what he wants. That is what John Roberts, per a source, is telling people. He is literally telling people, just give him what he wants. They want to be on their knees. They are refusing to rule on cases, hoping that they can string it out, waiting to rule against Donald Trump's claims of total immunity when there's a Democratic president there. Then they can pretend that they all along were going to constrain the president. They were just waiting for the president to be Gavin Newsom or J.B. Pritzker. Now they're going to constrain them. But there may not be a President Gavin Newsom or a President J.B. Pritzker, because the big thing that Lev Parnas is hinting at is that they're going to do something to prevent the Republican Party from losing control of the Congress, because the weak-kneed, supine, obedient Republican Party and their refusal to assert their rights as an Article 1 power, as the most powerful entity in the country, it's Congress. Their refusal to assert themselves is the only thing allowing Donald Trump to run amok. Donald Trump couldn't destroy the East Wing of the White House if the Congress said you can't do it, if they stood there and stopped him. They could cut his money off. They could cut his salary. They could cut everybody's salary. They could cut Kristi Noem's salary. Congress is the one that has the power. They're refusing to use it. Much of the media is bought and paid for, gone. Fox is just state media. They're just going to get on there and cackle and about what Donald Trump is doing. They've got one or two good people over there. The rest of them, they overwhelm them with bullshit and lies. They're state media. All of that right-wing media is state media. And then you've got this cabal between their independent media, the now Tucker Carlsons of the world, et cetera, and this white Christian nationalist tech bro CEO movement. They want complete control and oppression, as GCAN07 said. They want total control and oppression. It is the Handmaid's Tale. And those of us who were saying it was fascism, it's the Handmaid's Tale, we're warning you that they're trying to reestablish America 1.0, which is America in 1619, when women were in loco parentis of their fathers and brothers and then their husbands, when women literally were considered property in loco parentis of their parents, and then of their fathers, and then of their brothers that the father died, and then of their husband. They were just passed along. Women could not inherit property. They had to marry someone in order to have property. They couldn't vote. And the only vote was the husband's vote, which was the family vote. Doug Wilson says openly on his podcast, frequently, as do many, Joel Webbin, all of these right-wing preachers, just listen to what they say. They say women should not have the independent right to vote. It should be a family vote in the 19th Amendment. They don't like any of the amendments, to be honest with you. They certainly, at this point, don't even like the Second Amendment, because they think that Alex Preddy, who was beaten up and assaulted 2 weeks before he was murdered, never actually used his Second Amendment right. So we're waiting for one more person to come on. Jason, we've got one more guest that we're waiting on. We're going to give her a few minutes to try to get on. This is an important guest that we can get her on, and then we're going to pop over onto Don Lemon's show. But this is a challenge. I'm waiting for one more person. If we can get her on, we'd love to have her. But this is what's happening. We are seeing the entire Constitution deleted.
This is what I find really sick. The chains. Joy.
The chains. I mean, they're putting the chains up deliberately because they want Black people to react. They want us to react to those chains exactly the way many of you in the chats are reacting. They want us to react because they want Black people in the streets rioting. Black people did not riot during George Floyd. During George Floyd, Black people peacefully marched, and they would send provocateurs from the right who would shatter a window and say, look, the Black people did it. Or set a fire and say, look, the Black people did it, and try to instigate an insurrection to make it look like Black people are out of control, to get white people to turn against Black people and side with them. That's all they ever want, is for white Americans, who are still 57% of the country, sliding toward not being the majority, but they're still 57%. They still want y'all to side with them. But what you need to understand is they killed a white woman who's a mother of 3 without a second thought, and then called her an effing B. They even though she has babies, she has a 6-year-old, they don't care. They don't care. For all you know, they're going to start kidnapping white women too. Maybe an ICE masked goon just thinks that's a pretty white woman, and they'll just grab her. Who's she going to tell? Kash Patel. Who's she going to tell? Who's she going to report to? If you got kidnapped by ICE and they assaulted you, who would you report that to? The Justice Department? Do you think they're going to help you? Todd Blanche is now saying that the Justice Department is going to open a civil rights investigation into the shooting of Alex Preddy. That is very, very, very interesting, because there's been a tremendous amount of pushback from the Second Amendment crowd, specifically about him. They don't care about Renee Nicole Good because she's a lesbian, and they don't care about white women. White women, by the way, they don't care about you. They just want you to breed. So I don't know if y'all have gotten that memo yet, but they really don't. They don't want you to have a college education because it makes you recalcitrant, not obedient, makes you come out of the house. They don't care about white women, but they definitely don't want white men turning on them. So now there is apparently, and of course it is Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former lawyer, in his hush money trial, the trial that made him a felon. They're now claiming that they're opening a civil rights investigation. Who runs the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department? It's not exactly someone who cares all that much about civil rights. And so what we're going to see is an investigation designed to make sure that whatever the outcome is preserves the right wing's love for the Second Amendment and their belief that this regime is not going to violate their Second Amendment rights. Harmeet Dillon, who's the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, is an ally of these same white Christian nationalist pastors. She and Peter Thiel were the Bay Area delegates to the Republican convention in 2016. So Harmeet Dillon is one of them. She now leads the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. Do we think that Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department investigation is going to result in real consequences for the 2 Border Patrol agents who shot Alex Preddy. We do know that the whole of that shooting is being thrown under the bus. Everyone's now passing the buck. You have Kristi Noem saying it was a fog of war. They only heard this in the early hours, and so they didn't really know what was going on. And so her statements were premature. They're all sort of trying to throw Stephen Miller under the bus. People are trying to distance themselves and sort of point to him. But he's clearly in charge. Donald Trump came out and said they're not de-escalating at all. So while everyone is pointing fingers and trying to pretend they're going to de-escalate, they're not de-escalating at all. They're all just trying to point fingers, maybe at Stephen Miller or maybe at Kristi Noem. But the bottom line is they all still have the same end goal, which is complete control of the United States under a small claque of billionaires, some of whom may or may not have been aligned with Jeffrey Epstein, who was holding incredibly damning information about a lot of elite men who were preying on children and trading them around like playing cards. And that is all going to be buried. Per Lev Parnas, this new release from 3 million files of the Epstein file, they're not going to have anything in it about Donald Trump. This is new reporting from Zeteo. Let me grab this reporting really quick. That allegations against Trump appear to have come from an FBI tip line. It's not clear if those allegations were ever investigated. Zeteo is reporting, this is what Mehdi Hassan was jumping off to start reporting on, that, and here's what I'm just going to read from this Zeteo reporting. I have not vetted this. I'm just letting you know. I'm reading you from Zeteo's reporting right now. Apologies for prolonging this live just a little bit longer. And this is apparently from an FBI tip line that says Trump, the president, had parties at Mar-a-Lago called Calendar Girls. Jeffrey Epstein, Elon Musk, and others, then it trails off there. Epstein would bring the children in and Trump would auction them off. He mentioned the children's vulva and vaginas by entering a finger and rated the children on tightness. This is horrible. I want to just let you all know this is horrible. This is from a tip line. I'm just letting you know that I have not vetted this information. I'm just getting this. Zeteo is reporting that there was a tip line in which somebody reported this. We don't know if this tip is true. We don't know if these allegations are true. We just know this was reported to a tip line. So I apologize for what I'm reading right now. I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it a little bit more, and I'm just letting you all know what was sent to a tip line. We do not know if it's true. I want to make that very clear. The guests were elder men and included Elon Musk, Don Jr., Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump were there. Attorney Alan Dershowitz was also there with attorney Bob Shapiro. We were taken in rooms, forced to, okay, I'm not going to continue. This is awful. I'm going to pause because I don't know that I can read this next bit. They're claiming sexual abuse in this tip line. Whoever this person is claiming sexual abuse and said Ghislaine Maxwell was also present. This caller reported that in 1987, a friend, victim 1, was out drinking and ended up at Trump Plaza. Victim 1 saw Donald Trump and wanted to meet him. An unknown man approached her and offered to introduce her to Trump. The unknown man gave victim 1 a drink, and victim 1 woke up naked and sore with $300 on the bed. Victim 1 did not remember how she got in the room. She remembered seeing a flash of Trump's face. Victim 1 called the caller and told her that she thought she had been raped. Victim 1 did not go to a hospital and have a rape kit performed because she didn't think anyone would believe her, especially because she was drunk. Victim 1's husband's business had problems with suppliers, and victim 1 believed Trump was behind it. Victim 1 also started dating a lawyer, identifiers unknown, who's also married. Victim 1 had a fight with her lawyer's boyfriend and went to a bar. Victim 1 left a bar with a man who no one at the bar recognized, but who seemed familiar with victim 1. Victim 1 was never seen again. A few years ago, remains were discovered that matched a description of what victim 1 was wearing when she went missing. DNA tests at the time were inconclusive. I'm just going to note again, that Zeteo News is reporting that allegations that I just read you came from a FBI tip line. And again, it's not clear if these were ever investigated. And of course, we have no idea if they were true, but these are the kinds of things that were allegedly reported to the FBI at some point. But now the FBI is in control of Donald Trump's henchmen, as is the DOJ. And they, at least according to Lev Parnas, are preparing to bury things like that to make sure that no one ever finds out not just about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, but about what everyone else was doing. And so I now understand clearly why they need to keep control of the White House. I will also note that Doug Wilson and some of these churches, and we won't name any names specifically, but some of these churches have had many issues with abuse of children and women in these churches as well. And so these religious Christian nationalists, these Christian nationalist churches, they're also not free from predation. And again, it is a kind of principle, it seems, among these white Christian nationalists that they get to live lascivious lives free of consequences, while the women and children around them and anybody who isn't a white Christian nationalist and a white Christian conservative has no rights. I'm going to leave it there because I don't know how much more we can do. I don't know if our final guest can make it. I think we're going to go ahead and leave it there for now. I will note that over
final guest on tonight.
Okay. We're going to ask our guest to try to come on tonight because we really do want to hear from her. I had a couple more guests we were trying to wait for, but they seem to be very much in the thick of trying to figure this out. This is rough, guys. 3 million pages are released. Kyle Griffin reporting 3 million pages. The Justice Department just released 3 million pages responsive to the Epstein Files Transparency Act. More than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are included. But per Lev Parnas, there will be nothing in those 3 million pages that will implicate any of the predator men.
Now you know why they arrested Don.
Now you know why they arrested Don Lemon. It was a giant distraction. They must clearly know that even John Roberts cannot rule on the basis of the existence of the First Amendment that Don Lemon can and these other 3 journalists can be prosecuted, but they wanted it to be Black people. They wanted it to be a famous Black person, particularly a Black gay man who is leading in independent media right now. They wanted it to be ostentatious, someone Trump personally hates, so that they can get MAGA extremely excited, get their amygdalas going, get them all hot and bothered on X Twitter. And so while they are excited and abusing themselves sexually, and so excited about Don, they can distract from these Epstein files. It always comes back to that, doesn't it? And know, and my last word that I'll say here is know that what they're doing in Minneapolis and killing those people in Minneapolis and kidnapping children in Minneapolis and shipping them off to Texas and taking those ballots in Georgia, all of that is a part of what they know they must do. They must keep Congress. They cannot afford to lose
Could
Congress.
you imagine if they lose Congress, the amount of stuff that
Oh
we're
my
going
God.
to hear? You think that is atrocious?
Oh my
Could
God.
you imagine
Oh my God.
if they,
If they lose Congress and anybody decent is still in charge, if the weak Democrats that are currently in charge fall back, and we get a real Democratic Congress with a few Republicans, because Rand Paul has been going off on this stuff too, Thomas Massie too. If you can get a handful of Republicans who are awake to this, with some Democrats with some balls, we can end this madness. Congress could end it. Congress can end it. And they know that. And so they are fixing to rig that election. They're going to put masked agents in the streets to scare you from going out to vote. They're going to try to limit your ability to vote any other way other than in person. They're going to be pulling people out of those voting lines to try to claim they're not legal citizens and then not freeing them until after the polls close. They're going to do the most. So we're going to have to do the most.
We're going to have to vote in mass.
It's going to have to be in
Everybody
mass.
has to go out there in mass. If we have to vote by, mail, if you could still do by mail, go for it.
And in
But
groups.
If you have to go out in big groups and all vote. This is a joke. They're trying to take over this whole thing.
Oh, 100%. Steve Bannon said, if we don't win this election, a lot of people are going to jail, including us. And they know it. And they know what's in those Epstein files. Steve Bannon was kikiing with Jeffrey Epstein and a bunch of those emails. I've been going through those emails, and it's pretty interesting. Some of the people who've been kikiing with him, and apparently he was kikiing with some of these tech bros who are trying to run our country. Remember,
don't boo. What's the saying? Don't
boo, vote. But
don't boo, don't sleep, stay
don't
woke.
sleep, stay
and
woke.
Make sure you go out there and vote.
And make sure before even that, and let me note, last thing I will add is that they've done all of this on today, which is the day of the boycott. So people may not have realized this, but today is the day that a group, which we're still trying to suss out who the group is, called for a an economic shutdown today. So the call was do not shop, do not spend, do not shop and do not spend your money with any store, especially very large stores that are Trump supporting. No spending. That was what today was about. Now, there's some small businesses you should continue to support. If they're a small business that's opening their doors to provide community and fellowship, please continue to patronize them. But the idea is minimize your spending today. That was what was supposed to be happening today, not the arrest of Don Lemon. Thank you all for tuning in. Please come back at 6 p.m. tonight. We will be doing the regular Joy Reid show at 6 p.m. We're going to be scrambling to get guests and everything together for that. We're going to have a lot more coverage. 6 p.m. I'm about to pop over to Don Lemon's show. So join me over there, Lemonheads. Love y'all. Thank you. See you at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm